False alarm, everybody's okay here. We just accidentally, in the process of saving you, cut down some white spirit trees that you believe to possess the souls of your ancestors.
Chapter 291 of One Piece. This is Here We Will Be.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the sometimes ignorant, sometimes lavish, sometimes awesome tale of One Piece. And the last several chapters, we have been in this this flashback showing the background 400 years ago of what happened, of course, with Mont Blanc Noland and Kalgara, the great Shandoran demon. And really, we've seen some highs and lows, in my opinion. We've seen some fundamental differences of opinion. We've seen that people, even though that they're different, can come together and still, celebrate their differences and enjoy just, the camaraderie and the company of being around each other. And then we've seen some just straight up ignorance and some stupidity, some pig-headedness. And really, this is going to be one of those chapters where you're probably going to be divided against what I think, and that's fine. Like I said, I encourage you to use your own mind and your own opinion on things. I'm just looking through this, and I'm just giving my opinion on it. So, our last chapter, we wondered why all of a sudden the Shandoran tribe had pretty much just turned on Noland and his guys, and had been treating them like shit towards the end of the chapter. So, in this chapter, we wind up finding out. And actually, within the first few pages, you see Noland winds up going to, to the Shandoran ruins, and he's looking for Kalgara. And he's like, Kalgara, I know you're here. Stop ignoring me. Stop being a little frickin' 2-year-old. And that's exactly how this whole thing was treated, as far as I'm concerned. You got a problem with somebody or with something that somebody says or does, you got to tell them, man. People can't read your frickin' mind. But anyway, so you see Kalgara creeping in the shadows somewhere, and he's just like, oh, yeah, do you want to leave here? Do you want us to part ways or make our friendship part ways by you being dead? Excuse me, by you being dead, something along those lines, threatening him, because Noland was like, dude, what the hell? I thought we were friends, So anyway, this whole nonsense goes on back and forth, during the course of the chapter. But about halfway through the chapter, we wind up finding out what the hell the problem is with these people again. And the problem with them, again, is that apparently their spiritual and ritual beliefs, like where they believe that like a snake is a god and that you have to sacrifice young hot women to go and make a tree plague go out of your village, that same type of just dumb shit, dastardly, fucking head thick as concrete way of thinking got in the way again after they had been there for a month, doing good things, making friends with everybody on the island. The Shandorans turned on him because, guess what? Noland and his guys cut down a patch of trees that were said to be sacred. And I guess when they ring this giant, majestic golden bell, I guess that the souls of the dead are supposed to go and inhabit the trees. And there's this group and patch of white trees, and Noland cut them down. Oh, fuck. And you see Kalgara going to talk about, oh, and this is what a botanist does. You see at some panel at some point in there and what have you. And the real kicker of this whole thing, which I thought was really nice as it unfolded throughout the chapter, is that you can be blind with your hatred and your stupidity, and especially when you don't go and you don't voice your concerns, you really run the risk of losing friendships or people that care about you or that you care about. Because what winds up happening is Musi, the girl that was going to be sacrificed, Kalgara's daughter, winds up coming out and sneaking out, and of course, because nobody's going to have contact with the evil people from the boat, from Noland's crew, and she goes and contacts and goes out and talks with the doctor under cover of of her cloak, and she's just like, I just had to explain to you what the deal was. So she explains that it's because of these trees that they cut down and everything else, without asking or without this and that. And the doctor's like, you know what, okay, I mean, I can understand that if that's what your beliefs are and everything else. So the doctor winds up later on then going back, and he's on the ship, and it's kind of cool how these whole events transpire. They're getting ready to ship off. Their work is done. They're going to leave. They're not feeling very welcome as it is. All right, we're going to take off, right? So the doctor goes and explains to Noland what the deal was with that, and Noland goes and he's like, well, you know, we can't make up for that. That's something that's not ever going to be forgiven. You know, we messed with their gods and this and that and everything else and their beliefs and all that. So I guess it was no big deal that he cut the head off of their perspective or their believed god, the Kashigami, the giant snake, of which, by the way, we also saw a smaller one in the last chapter and then also in this chapter, and we assume that it's like the grandchild of the original one, and I'm assuming that's the one that grows up to be in 400 years to be the ruler of the sky. And even Kalgara and Noland made mention of it, about maybe he'll get to be that big one day. And Kalgara's like, maybe in 100 years, maybe in 400. I don't know. But so anyway, so Noland goes, he's like, you know what, I get that completely. You know, we messed with their, you know, we fucked with their belief system one too many times. You know what, just leave all the gold. We're never going to come back here again, right? So everybody, of course, I'm sure is grumbling and pissed off about having to throw away all this wealth and put all this gold back on the beach. But as this goes and happens, there was obviously something that didn't come out right away in the conversation that we saw between the doctor and Muse. And Muse goes and is running back to the village and goes, and she's like, Kalgara, you know, her father, you know. And she's trying to explain, she's like, what if one of the trees was infected, and if it had a plague to it or whatever, and if we didn't cut it down, it would infect and destroy all the other ones, you know? And she's trying to explain to him, you know, and he's, what are you talking about, right? She winds up eventually coming out with it after several pages of the smoke and mirrors roundabout BS nonsense. She just comes out and straightforward just says, the reason they were searching the whole island, they cut down those trees, and you see that the conversation back between her and the doctor, this tree plague, it not only affects the people, right, but it also affects trees. And what they were doing is, the reason they were going methodically through and taking all this time to go through each part of the forest was not only just to find things because, you know, Noland's a botanist, it was to go and to find signs of that tree plague that had taken root in some of the probably vegetation, the trees, the plants, and then cut that shit down before it could spread, because it spreads like wildfire. It's a disease, right? So again, and I'm a little worked up about this because again, it's that small-minded fucking mentality that winds up prohibiting these people from actually getting along. If they went and found out that these spiritual trees that they thought that their ancestors' souls were in were cut down, why didn't you come to them and say, you know, because Moose is like, oh, and everybody brought up arms, you know, and we're going to go, and they were basically going to get the pitchforks and torches out and kill all you. But then we realized that, oh, fuck, we wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for you. So, we're just going to bite our tongue and act like dicks to you. That type of stuff really, really irritates me, because this could have all been solved by Kalgara, pissed as he was, coming to Noland and saying, dude, why did you cut down our trees, these ancestral spiritual trees? And Noland could have said, I had no idea that they were supposedly going to house the souls, and, you know, because now they're not ringing the bell anymore, everybody's pissed off. Noland could have explained about the tree plague and the disease and said, listen, I'm sorry, it was a mistake that I didn't come and tell you about these, but how would I know that these were these magical ancestral trees that, you know, you guys in your archaic beliefs believe that hold the souls of your people in, because you ring a fucking bell? I was trying to stop a plague that was going to wipe out your entire people, your vegetation, the trees, everything that you utilize, you know? So to me, it's like that could have been, this whole last couple of chapters could have been solved real easy with just like a simple like, hey, let's talk. You did this to piss me off, and then, you know, Noland could have said, well, I'm sorry, but this is why we did it, right? So anyway, so now Kalgara, who gets the horse's ass award for the whole flashback, you know, just for being like ignorant, cool, then ignorant again, he goes running towards, he's got to get to them, you know, and they're going to cast off to sail, and he's like, did we forget it? And Noland and his people, you know, Noland's like, did we forget anything? And somebody's like, yeah, he's kind of crying, and it's like all that treasure that they want to have, right? So anyway, he's like, take a good look, man, we'll never be coming back here again, blah, 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 because he assumes that these people will try to kill him, you know, because they cut down the ancestor trees, you know. And so as they're going and pulling, you know, they're going sailing out to sea and what have you, it's cool because he goes and he says, set a course for Marijoa, or Marijoa. And that, I remember back from chapter 234, I want to say, was actually the island that naval headquarters was on. So, and then he says, and it was just, then we're on to our kingdom, the naval kingdom. So I don't know if they first had to go to Marijoa, or if Marijoa actually was their kingdom, and then I don't know. I just know that, like, the name dropping thing, I picked up on it, and obviously that's going to lead to my chapter question if anybody can tell me about that. But nonetheless, though, Kalgara catches him as he's leaving, and he's like, "No, Noland, please forgive me, come back," you know, and this and that. And he's like, "Oh, it's fine, we'll come back," and you know, and he's like, "I'll ring the bell for you," and they had started ringing the bell again, all like crazy, to hopefully get Noland's attention before he left. You know, while Kalgara ran through the forest, you know, all barefoot and shit, you know. And he is a pretty cool looking warrior, so don't get me wrong. His mentality of him bothers me a little bit. So nonetheless, as they're going and casting off, it's kind of, that's how the chapter ends. It ends with kind of like a heartfelt, like, "Oh, but we'll, you know, here, we'll ring the bell for you, you know, and then let's meet again, my friend." And then, you know, and then he says, "We'll meet again, I promise you." And that's how the chapter ends. And unfortunately, because it's a flashback and we know what happened after that 400 years in the future, as well as from the Noland the Liar book, we know that it's a sad, sad tale because Noland never actually gets to get back to the island, or he does, but that part of the island is gone, and he never ever gets to actually, his family name is cursed and shamed for 400 years, and he never actually gets to go and talk with Kalgara again, to see his friend, this friend that even early in the chapter, you know, when they said that they should get along and they should just make amends, you know, his crew members were talking about, you know, the admiral really made a great, you know, great friend in Kalgara, and that's like a once in a lifetime type of thing. They were going to be inseparable for life. So it's a real shame, and it's really kind of disheartening and saddening at the same time that some of the stuff in the earlier part of the chapter enraged me, but then, of course, at the end of the chapter, it's like, oh, man, you know, I know what's going to happen. You're never going to see him again, you know, and you feel terrible. So anyway, but that leads to my chapter question. Is there anything that anybody can tell me or that they actually know about that connection with Marijoa, where they're going? Is that, in fact, where their kingdom was from? You know, is the Navy even around at this point? I know people went and talked in the chapters, and, oh, just so you know, he's not the Navy world government admiral. I get that. I said he's the exploration admiral, and I said it several times, of his kingdom. You know, so obviously his kingdom has their own naval fleet. And is this 400 years ago, is this before there was, you know, a world government in place, timeline-wise, with an actual, you know, fleet and everything like that, where they just pretty much govern over everything? Or is it like Alabasta has its own warriors, and I'm sure probably some of their own ships and everything like that to protect their kingdom? Is it just that type of thing? And then, of course, the world government and the Navy are still in place. So I guess those are some of the questions that are burning in my mind that I'd like to have answered, if they're not too spoilerish, and you can answer them down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I don't know what the hell I'm doing there. Look forward to catching all of you in the next one, Nation.
If you like this here type of artwork, you should go on over and follow me on the Facebook and the Twitter twatter.